I mean, it's so true. I mean, an event is where you get to put your energy and what you're about, not just on display, but in a relatable way for people to interact and connect with. And there's nothing more powerful and important for a brand than that moment of engagement. You know, you can't just hide behind the website or your images. You're there representing. And so it can feel really vulnerable, but it's also super important and should be something that's respected and really well regarded, because you can make such powerful connections in that sort of space that you just can't online.
Welcome to Uneventful, a podcast where we pull back the curtain on the world of events. Join me weekly as I speak with people in and around the industry about their experiences. We talk about turning chaos into calm, diva behavior, take your breath away moments, and those bonkers instances that even the most seasoned pro could never plan for. Event planner is consistently listed in the top 5 most stressful jobs. These chats will illuminate why that is and why, as my friend JJ says, it takes a special kind of a-hole to work in events. We're getting a ton of different perspectives from graphic designers, AV and tech gurus, to stakeholders and the folks running the venues. We're spilling the tea and laughing hysterically. Okay, y'all, let's pull back the curtain. It's showtime. My guest this week is a recent colleague who has become a dear friend and is currently the founder of Bloomtree Wellness. Adriana and I worked together at a Web3 org called Celo, where she was focused on community building and also had developed a really successful founder wellness program as part of Celo's founder bootcamp. After working together for a while on our online community events, I was keen to bring that prowess to the events team, and I succeeded. There are many elements required to bring events to life, and community engagement is one of them. Audie's experience and passion for this work is one of the reasons I so enjoy working with her. We're going to chat about building connection through community. I want to reminisce about the event in Barcelona that we created from scratch. We're going to talk about the unseen but powerful energy of an in-person gathering, among other things. I'm so excited to introduce you to Adriana. Hello, my beautiful friend. How are you? I'm so happy you're here.
Well, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me. It's so fun to chat about this.
Oh my gosh, it's such an honor. And I just, like I said in the intro, there are so many different layers to building an event, and not every event has that element that you bring so well and do so well, that community aspect, that building. It's really exciting to have you here and have you share that element of this piece that goes into the things that we do.
So sweet.
So why don't you tell us about your origin story and how you got to be in this place, what you were doing before, and how you came to be in this place where we met a couple of years ago.
Totally. So I've always loved bringing people together, and I think it kind of starts growing up on a motel property, actually, because my parents had a 7 rooms motel business, and our house was literally sitting right on the same property.
Oh that's so fantastic.
It's a unique experience because boundaries weren't really a thing. I mean, we had like of our house. But as soon as I was old enough to open up a door, I was downstairs, welcoming guests in, checking them in, and really being aware of what kind of experience are we creating for these people on this property that is ours.
I love this story so much.
Mm-hmm.
I can just see you.
I loved it. Can you?
Little 5-year-old Audie out there just welcoming the people.
Oh yeah, totally. And do they need anything? They need fresh towels. And it was always so fun for me to have new people, that were strangers when they came on the property, but then getting to talk to them a little bit in the office if they were coming from Germany or, South Africa. There's actually a couple that always came every summer from South Africa. I would just sit there and just take in all these stories. So it was like having this revolving door of people and different experiences coming onto the property where I lived every summer.
Love it.
So I think that really got me comfortable with connecting to new people and a sense of, how do you create an experience for people where they feel comfortable, hospitality.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, ultimately, I ended up going, to school actually for economics was what I ended up majoring in. But I found myself ultimately when I moved to San Francisco working for a community startup. And that's where I started learning about community work, like what brings people together. And in that startup, it was, these mom groups and
Mm.
other types of parent groups in an online setting. And so learning what brings people together online. And
Oh,
then at Google, I ended up doing community work that was both online and in person with Google developer groups, which are local communities and meetup groups of developers that get together and learn about Google technologies. And that's really where I got my learning of in-person events and what makes them fun and
yeah.
enriching and valuable. So
Yeah.
from there, I ended up doing some other things, going more on a spiritual journey, learning kundalini yoga, sound healing, and kind of more ceremonial arts. And then it was after that that you met me at Celo, and kind of I brought all those things together and culminated them in the work that we did there.
Yeah, and that was so special for me because, I've been in events for 600 years and I hadn't met anyone who brought all these sort of myriad pieces to the table. And I mean, I feel like I do, but differently. Like you have that more spiritual side of things, which I really appreciated and helped me sort of see how to build a program a little bit differently.
Mm,
And so that was, to me, a really special thing to learn from you. I
mhm.
loved working on those sort of monthly, quarterly, I don't even remember anymore. My short-term memory shot. The Kanekos and those community meetings. I really
Yeah.
enjoyed watching you. And in fact, that first year, I think it was like 3 months after I'd started,
Mm.
the pandemic was still sort of in full swing, and so you put together that was it a 2-day Kaneko or a
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it was a conference. In fact, so it was so
online.
interesting because we were like launching mainnet at Cello, and then the pandemic happened. And so where we were going to have more of an in-person outreach, all of a sudden we had to shift our strategy to online. And then what Kuneko was birthed, this concept of how do we keep community in touch virtually? Well, let's have this regular, I think it was quarterly at first, and then we tried monthly too at one point, kind of shifting the different cadences of community gathering online. And so I think one of the initial meetings was this, 2-day conference in lieu of an in-person one.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so many different elements, and online is so different than in person too. So we were
Yeah.
all learning at that point because that was newer to us.
It was definitely, I mean, I'd never done anything like that. I've always been in live events. I mean, I've done
Mm.
like webinars, but not a 2-day conference online. Like that was, I think probably a lot of people in the events world were like, okay, whoa, here we go. This is uncharted territory for the most part. Like a 2-hour webinar, even a half-day webinar is very different from a 2-day, you hope they come back the second day. Like there's just
Totally.
so much
So
that
much.
the variables are so different in an online experience. And I
Oh yeah.
wonder, it would be great to hear from you a little bit about how you see the differences in those two different experiences of the online versus the IRL.
Yeah, totally. I mean, luckily we did have, I'm not remembering who exactly it was. We were using a third-party events platform at the time to
Okay.
help us with the logistics. And I think the technological logistics is what's just so hard. I
Yeah.
mean, sure, we have that in person, as you and I know, with
Yeah.
the Celo Connect in Barcelona, we had our share of technical issues.
Sure.
But online, if the connection goes or something is not right, you are dictating everyone's experience. So
Yes.
there's more of a templated experience for online. because you don't have all the different rooms and the nooks and crannies and running into someone in the restroom. It's like, nope, here is one stream
Yeah.
and that's it.
Yeah.
So I think that's what's challenging about it. And so it's way more of a one stream out, and as opposed to connecting both streams, you're connecting outwards and you're getting that feedback in. So we tried to create some different rooms on the platform that we were using to create community engagement, but it ended up being much more of like a broadcasting out of a bunch of speakers,
Right.
because there's just no way technologically, at least right now, maybe some technologies have gotten better, for sure they have since that event, but like to be able to create that level of engagement of different conversations and topics within one online experience.
Right.
So I think online is still great for international communities and being able to disseminate information widely and have a few, breakout rooms here and there, but nothing is ever going to be able to replace in person.
No, no. And I think, well, you and I both know, like there's just an energy and a real energetic connectedness that comes with being in person. Like I have a story about being in working on a conference in New York, and Deepak Chopra was one of the speakers, and it was just really like kind of controversial. It was a whole thing. Anyway, he did one of the breakouts, and he was doing this. He spoke for a while, and then he was going to do this meditation, and I was at the back of the room, just interested. I didn't have an opinion about him, but I just was super interested, meditation. And so I get called on the radio. There's a thing happening. You got to come and put out this fire. I come back into the room and everyone's meditating and he's guiding them. And I'm not even lying when I tell you, I crossed the threshold into this room. Tears started streaming down my face. I like buckled my knees, but I was just hit by this. I don't know what it was, but that is when I really realized the level of energy that is so important in people being connected to each other in a real life experience.
100%. And, actually, as part of the curriculum of Bloomtree, my company where we share curriculum to support founders and innovators in being better leaders, having better well-being, and so on, is a whole section on communication and how to speak from your authentic voice. And one of the stats that's in that presentation that we share to kind of bring the point across around speaking is that only like 20 to 30% of what you actually say, like the words matter. Everything else is your body language. It's your energy.
Yeah.
You could potentially be talking about something that the other person like doesn't understand at all or resonate with, but they're resonating with your energy and they're going to want to have another conversation with you. Right.
Yeah.
So
it's so powerful.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it's something that you don't understand until I experienced that. I would never, to this day, would not be understanding the level of the depth and the power of being in person.
Yeah. And I do think that there's something to creating that level of magic online. I think that it is possible in some spaces if everyone's bringing their presence together and there's a shared intention. And I think we've gotten better at that since the pandemic because we've had to move so much online. But so much more is available when you're not just connecting with this, this screen of people and you're actually in person. We get so much more information about the other person, and there's so much more energy that can be shared when it's not just through a screen. So definitely grateful that we have the ability to connect in this way online. The technology has allowed for that. And yeah, in person is so special.
Yeah. I just want to talk a little bit about our fun adventures in Barcelona.
Oh, yeah.
That was such a special time for me. And like the team and everything that we put together and the kind of rocky road it took for us to get to where we did. And then just to have the people internally, the attendees, the vendors all just say that was an incredible experience. And Do you want to just talk a little bit about how it was from your perspective?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so the stage is that we created a 2-day in-person conference
Yeah.
for all of Celo community to come together. And these are people that are across different aspects of Web3. For anyone who's familiar with Web3 or the crypto world, there's just so many different types of roles that people play in different hats. And everyone is integral in making the community happen and to make success happen. And so within that space, I mean, from my perspective, so my role, as you know, was to get the programming together. Like, what is this conference about?
Right. Yeah.
What is the content? Who's speaking? Like, from a kind of a ideological perspective, like what are we getting people, what do we want them to walk away with, and what are the experiences we want to have from that perspective. So I have to say, even though it was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done, because you know that I pulled a few all-nighters to get
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
agenda.
Yeah.
We all did, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it
Welcome to
was
the glamorous world of events.
oh, so glamorous, so glamorous. Yes, indeed. Yeah, having cookies at like 2 a.m. to like
Hmm.
keep me up and
Yeah.
keep going.
Brutal.
But from my perspective, it's so fun to think about, okay, what is the experience that we want people to have? What is our core messaging? What are the feelings we want them to walk away with? What are the things that we want them to do? And then from there, in this kind of higher level, figuring out what all those pieces, the infrastructure is of creating that. And so, yeah, I mean, it also got me working with a bunch of different people across the organization to ensure that each team, each org had their key pieces that they wanted to have as a part of this experience at the conference, whether it was, using the Valora wallet, or it was a workshop, or it was a talk. And so what I'm proud of, and what was fun about it, was that we were using this kind of bottoms up, transparent process to make sure that everyone had a voice. It wasn't like a top down, like, this is what we're doing at the conference and telling people what to do.
Right.
It was really, bottoms up. What does every org, how do they want to participate? What's their relationship? What do they want their relationship to the community to be? And how can we create that through the structure of, the types of talks and experiences that we had, and to what was available on site.
Right. Right. And I think that is, that sort of bottoms up, organic approach, community focused approach is good, but it also can be debilitating because everyone, if you give someone like, hey, what do you
Mm-hmm.
want to hear or say, then everyone has an opinion, and why am I only getting 10 minutes, and why are they getting main stage? And I mean, it turns, I mean, it can be chaos,
It
as
can be.
evidenced by your multiple
Yeah,
overnight awake sessions. But
that's
honestly, I
true.
think ultimately, like there's a boundary there. But it's hard to find. Once you want people to feel like they have a voice and a say. It's just
Mm-hmm.
really hard to then put that genie back in the bottle when you're trying to find the boundaries for what that programmatically looks like.
100%. And that's why I think it's important to have a sense of boundaries.
Yeah.
Time and space are boundaries that we don't have any
Right.
control over. It's 2 days. There's only so
Right.
many hours in these days. There's only
Exactly.
so many rooms in the
Right.
in the venue. So
Yeah.
that in and of itself is helpful. And then
Yeah.
from there, yeah, from there having kind of just very clear goals and making sure that everyone is understanding what those goals are, so that if
Right.
they are coming back and saying, well, what about this?
Yeah.
You can push back.
And I
Um,
think, I mean, people who are founders aren't typically shrinking violets or wallflowers. And there might be a little ego there as to, like, again, like, why am I not on main stage? Why
mhm.
am I, And so that's managing personalities from a speaker programmatic perspective can be difficult.
That's true. I would say the hardest thing in regards to Cello Connect, was mainly just the number of speakers that we could
Yeah.
add
Yeah.
to. the agenda.
We have an unconference space. Tell them to sign up first thing in the morning and go over there. I mean, that was
Yeah,
really sort of,
I'm glad we did that.
yeah, I am too.
Yeah. You
And
need that overflow space. And it also just enables the community to be yeah, to take more initiative when they
right.
know that there's a space that they can basically organize. Like,
Yeah. And I think that's also good though, too, because if you are on the main stage and the room seats, 200 or 500 and you have 30 people in the room, I mean, that's a bigger hit than never being on the main stage. So thinking about that from like a speaker perspective, if you're a speaker out there and you are like, my
mm-hmm.
ego says I need to be on the main stage, really think about what you're saying and why people will want to hear what you have to say, because your ego is going to take a much bigger hit if that room isn't full.
That's a really great point.
I've dealt with enough speakers in my life to know
Uh-huh.
that like I'm on the main stage or I'm not talking. And
Wow.
and like I can't guarantee you're going to have a room full of people. So,
Mm-hmm.
here's hoping, you know, it can be difficult. So,
Yeah.
again, speakers out there, founders, people who want to speak, really think about why you're getting on that stage and what your message is and how you can fill that room.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if there are competing programmatic elements outside of at the same time.
Oh, totally. Totally. And that was, definitely a challenge at the conference, but it's also what makes it exciting because as an
Right.
attendee, you don't just have one choice.
Yeah.
It's like it was like a little mini festival in there, It's like
Yeah.
I'm going to go up to this room and participate in this thing and then there's snacks over there and
Yeah.
then,
Right. This
all
cool
the different
sponsor area
spaces.
over here. Yeah.
The bean bags are over in this area and like,
The
there's this really cool
NFT experience upstairs.
I almost forgot about the NFT experience. And now that you bring it up, I'm just remembering how much build out there was for that space.
Oh my gosh, poor Chris. He was, I don't even know.
That's
That
right.
he's still talking to me to this day is bonkers.
And I think this is actually a great example for people of just like how much work goes into events. So like
Yeah.
I love having interactive art pieces
Yes.
in an event. It's so cool, But when you think about the logistics of getting all of the equipment that you need, the lighting, in this case, it was like presented as like an Amazonian forest, dirt
Right.
and plants, and not to mention all of the NFT art and all of the technical needs that are required to get that installed.
Again, the reason for this podcast is so that people can understand what goes on behind the scenes. And when you pick a gorgeous, beautiful venue in beautiful Barcelona, I mean, what can go wrong? 400,000 things can go wrong. Lucky for us, we had maybe a dozen, but there are, and you're planning it on another continent ostensibly. And thankfully, we were able to have people on the ground there. But, that is why I always say, like, when people say, oh, your job must be so great, I'm like, I love it. I love to talk about it. I love to do it. I don't mind the overnight, like, no sleep. Like, these wrinkles come from a lot of really great experiences and hard work. But
You
holy
earn
crap,
them.
it's not easy.
No, it's not easy, but Sandra, like most things that are worth it aren't.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, the day after that conference, I have to say, for me, I had like this transcendent experience in the music hall. Did I tell you about this? I don't know.
No, I don't think so.
The day after Celo Connect was complete, and you know how it is
Yeah,
after an event. You are exhausted, you're high, you're all the
wiped.
things, you're constantly on,
Yeah,
right? For an extended time,
yeah,
a push. And not only to get it up and running, but then, traveling across the country, you're jet
right.
lagged, all the things.
Plus all the like 80-hour work weeks that come before, like the adrenaline is high for weeks.
You have to be comfortable with stress for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
And so I was going for a walk. It was like 11 a.m. and, the beautiful streets of Barcelona.
Gorgeous.
And So the only time I have a croissant is when I'm in Europe. And so I just had my croissant and my coffee, and I'm going for a walk, and I go by this building that just seems really beautiful, and it's really ornate, and it looks like it's probably made by a contemporary of Gaudi, if not Gaudi himself, but it was similar kind of style and like mosaic like. And so I'm like, it seems like a public building. I'm gonna just waltz in and see what's going on over here. And so I waltz in, and it turns out to be some sort of music building, and it shows that they're about to have a walk-through tour at like 11 a.m.
Oh
And I'm
my
like,
gosh.
okay, that sounds great. What
I'm
else do I
full
have
of
to do right
croissant and
now?
coffee.
And there's this open room, and I walk in, and there's this orchestra that's playing, like tuning their instruments in the most gorgeous concert hall that I have ever
Oh,
seen.
oh
It
my
looks like you're on
gosh.
LSD, like no
Oh.
joke. I literally sat down. It was like I was struck by the
Oh.
Holy Spirit, and I just started crying.
Oh my gosh. I mean, what a serendipitous moment. And
Indeed.
also, I love that you, and I wish more people would do this, just sort of like followed your curiosity, right? Like,
Yes.
I'm just going to have a little adventure. Who knows where it'll take me? If I don't like it, I can turn around, but I'm going to go explore this. I love that. And what an amazing,
And I think that that's something that, some of us, it's harder to do, to
right.
just not have a plan and to just trust that there's another energy to tap into or to listen to.
Yeah.
But that's something I've always loved doing, especially in different cities in Europe, like anywhere that's new to me, to just like go off and explore in that
Yeah.
way is just so fun.
Yeah.
And that particular moment for me, though, was so special because it really felt like there was some energy, some spirit was like, thank you for your work. And now you
Oh,
can receive this magic. And then they ended up playing a piano concerto. One of the most magical experiences of my life, for sure.
what a beautiful moment. And I mean, and so special that after all that hard work and all the tea, I mean, you don't get to that level of like sleep deprivation and stress without some tears that are just like,
Oh, shit.
I am broken, I am breaking, I will
Yeah.
crumble. And then to have this
Yeah.
come on the other side of it and have this absolutely exquisite moment. I mean, that is so beautiful. I love it. I love it so
So
much.
sweet. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure we went to where did we go after? There was this bathhouse. We went to a bathhouse later that afternoon, those of us on the team. I don't think you were there with
I
us
didn't
on.
No, I'm such an introvert that I have to like peace out and not talk to anyone or see anyone for at least 24 hours, but preferably 72.
That's real. I mean, the fact that you're an introvert and you're able to even do this role, I mean, at all is just amazing. So I get that.
But I love it. I love every aspect of what I do. I mean, I've had to obviously like train myself to be an extrovert,
Mm,
but for sure, like I can go, 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 but once it's done, I have to
mm,
peace out. I can't even pretend that I want to go grab a drink with people. Like
right.
even the after party, I was like,
Right.
I'm not going.
Boy, that after party, Sandra. Damn. I
Yeah.
mean, talk about, and so it's like, what are the elements that make for a great after party? First of all, let's just talk about the space that you chose. And that was a
Yeah.
whole thing, right? For us
Yeah.
to figure out what space was going to work.
Yeah.
And I really learned a lot from you in that whole experience of like being able to see a space, just like the structure of a building,
Mm.
and imagine what could happen in here,
Yeah.
right? So cool. Like
Yeah.
industrial and like artwork, and then just imagining where the stage would go. And then I mean there was just so many beautiful elements that made it a great event.
Yeah. And I really, for me, I loved the juxtaposition of the really old, ornate conference space we had, and then to go into this like really cool, very sparsely furnished and like
Mhm.
really the 180 from what the conference
So
venue was.
true.
I love that
It's so true.
juxtaposition.
That was really cool, and it just added to the creative flair of the whole experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I love to build out a space.
So good at it. I
Thanks.
understand.
Hundreds of years of practice. Uh, so we touched a little bit on Google, your experience at Google, and I don't know much, but I'd love for you to just talk a little bit about that community building because I
Yeah.
love sort of your work there in that regard.
Totally. There were so many special things about playing the role that I did, which was a community advocate for this global community of Google developers. And what one of the ways that events played a role in my job was to design and organize this annual summit to bring all the organizers to Mountain View, the headquarters of Google, for them to come together, learn from one another. We did have content on what makes for good community building, really helping them succeed in being leaders in their community, as well as learning about the technologies on the ground from actual engineers at Google, and just have fun along the way. So that was a special experience for me. And so I did help with the arc of kind of figuring out the content piece. And I also shared some pieces on community building, like what does it mean to be a community manager and some tips and that sort of thing.
Wasn't
And
there, I feel like you told me a story once about how you like put together a band or something.
oh, yeah. So
I love this so much. I'm not going to let you not talk about this.
well, I have to say it wasn't one of my favorite parts too, to be honest. But I've mentioned already that I love music, and I just happened to be a part of this Google band, meaning like there were a few other Googlers that we got together and created this little like four-piece band, and we did mainly covers. We had like one or two original songs, and and so I thought, for the opening party, when people got here, wouldn't it be fun if we, instead of hiring a DJ or a band, we created our own band? I mean, you have plenty of musicians in this global community. I
Oh
mean,
my
it's
gosh.
like 500 people coming from all over the world, right? So there's bound to be some folks that know how to play drums and so on. So sure enough, I was able to recruit some
Ugh.
bandmates, and we they came
Ah,
in
I love
the night
it.
they got there. Yeah, the night they got there, we got together, we practiced a few tracks, and then people loved it
Of
because,
course they did.
it's like people that they know that are in their community that are singing, then all of a
Yep.
sudden the whole crowd is joining in the songs, and it was
Yeah.
so much more like, yeah, so much more fun than just hiring a band.
And it just adds another element of connection. Like, oh my gosh, I didn't know Raj played the drums. Like,
Exactly. Yeah.
it's so cool. Oh my God. Yeah, I love that so much that just adds another layer of that element of connection that we both sort of treasure so much.
Totally. And it just as with the dinner party, it became this tradition that every year we would bring together the Google band.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh.
mhm,
Oh, I love that so much. So we've kind of touched on this, but
mhm.
what's your favorite thing about working in events?
You know, I think my favorite thing is the unexpected and the unknown,
Yeah.
which can be super scary for folks, but the
Yeah.
way that I see it, it can either be scary or it can be magical.
Yeah.
And I kind of have this just underlying belief that I try to remember oftentimes, that the universe is conspiring in our favor, right? Like, expect magical experiences, just expect magic.
Yeah.
And so I think going into an event with that mindset, like you don't really know what's going to happen. You have a bunch of
Right.
people in a room, and, we're all just kind of making it up as we go along to some degree. There's been a lot of planning as well, but um,
Yeah.
that's what I think is really special. It's ultimately in what happens in
Yeah.
those new experiences.
Yeah. And I think, and I've said this before, but I think that if you are a control freak, this might not ultimately be the right job for you, like, or industry. Like, you can only plan so much, but
Right.
shit's gonna happen that you have no, like, you wouldn't expect. And,
Absolutely.
like I had a 2-day conference. The coffee vendor showed up the first day, fine, no problem. The next morning, he's like nowhere to be found. So like, how would you even expect that your coffee guy is not going to show up for day 2? He just decided like, it's not worth my time. So I'm like, well, I have 1,200 people. So, again, glam world of events. But like, that's the stuff I thrive on. Like, oh, it's like putting a puzzle together that was missing a piece. And okay, well, I'm going to build the piece myself. I love that part. And there's so many things I love, but
well, it's a special skill to have, that you realize when you're in it and then you leave it, you're like, oh, not everyone is built this way. Like that can really stress a lot of people out.
Yeah.
And so you kind of, at least for me, I learned that, oh, I guess I'm really good under pressure. I actually work better under pressure. Yeah. And it's fun to be agile and to think on your feet. It's kind of like an improv game in some ways.
Yeah.
It can be. And so, yeah, it's definitely, I don't think events is for the faint of heart. If you're trying to grow your edge, maybe in that area of being good with uncertainty, try it out.
Yeah. Yeah. So what do you think people misunderstand or underestimate or don't really get right when they think about the events world?
Well, unless you've actually had the experience of running an event, you just do not have the awareness of how much goes into it. I think people really underestimate what goes into creating an event. They think it's just, ordering the water or the food or whatever and just sit back and like have fun. It's like, no, you are creating an experience for people.
Right.
Everything to the lighting and the decor to if we oversell, or whatnot, are you going to have space for more people? At what point do you not let people in? Security. You're really thinking about every aspect of one's experience and the experience as the whole as more people join.
Right.
And I don't think people realize that. Maybe if you've planned your own wedding or something like that, you'll get a taste of it.
Yeah. I was just going to say, like, even like family reunions, right? I think that your family shows up and they're like, oh, it was great, but you will never understand unless you've done it yourself how much thought that person or that aspect, those 2 people from your family put into planning that thing. And so totally. I think you're right. I just think people think it's so much easier than it actually is.
And also, if it's a family reunion, it's kind of expected that you're all family. So some people are going to chip in here, some people are going to chip in there. Like, it doesn't need to be perfect. If it's actually your job and you're getting paid to put on an event where you're selling tickets and people expect a certain experience, the pressure is going to be more on, and you really need to think about all the different pieces.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I will say, some families are not as forgiving as maybe some clients might be. So, didn't you know Uncle Joe is gluten-free and lactose intolerant, and like the 47 things that this one person has wrong is supposed to be your key focal point for the entire 83 person family reunion.
I mean, that's fair.
So, not to say if you're out there listening and you're planning your family reunion or you're thinking of stepping up to do it, I say absolutely do it. Set a good boundary.
And give yourself time. I think that's the other thing.
Yeah.
Give yourself the time to plan things out.
And that's, another thing about this Web3 world that I don't love so much is that everybody wants to do like, oh, you can do it in 2 months. Like, I can do it and I can make it great, but it's going to cost you. So why not like start 6 or 8 or, even 10 months out and find the venue and get the price locked in before it's the hottest commodity. And now you're scrambling to try to find the right venue to fit the mood and the whole, like whether it's family reunion or conference for 2,000 people, start soon.
That's really important.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just going to say it. Events are so key.
Hey, Sandra.
Events are so key to brand alignment that I think people forget. And like, you can put out a thing online and change the artwork later if it doesn't resonate, or you learn, whatever. But an event is like, you got to get all the elements right and hit them, and your people will connect to your brand, your product, your mission, your, whatever it is, if you get that IRL thing nailed. And the best way to do that is to give yourself time.
Absolutely. I mean, it's so true. I mean, an event is where you get to put your energy and what you're about, not just on display, but in a relatable way for people to interact and connect with. And there's nothing more powerful and important for a brand than that moment of engagement. You can't just hide behind the website or your images. You're there representing. And so it can feel really vulnerable, but it's also super important and should be something that's respected and really well regarded, because you can make such powerful connections in that sort of space that you just can't online.
Nope. No. Attendee or planner? Would you rather be an attendee or work on the event?
I'd rather work on it, to be honest. And I say that because actually one of my personal kind of boundaries right now about attending festivals is that I want to be involved in some way, whether I'm planning it, whether I'm offering an experience. I want to be a part of the creation of it. Otherwise, it just feels like I'm going and consuming, and I'm not like reciprocating with something that I'm giving. I mean, of course, I love also attending events that maybe I just have no business being a part of because I don't know enough about the content or the topic. But in general, being able to plan, I think I'm just such a container builder that's actually what I prefer.
Yeah. I'm so grateful to you for being here. I'm so happy about this conversation. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's always so fun to chat about these things with you, Sandra.
I know, it really is. Okay. Ciao, Bella.
Ciao.
Thank you so much for listening to Uneventful. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Please make sure to subscribe to Uneventful wherever you listen to podcasts. Sharing and rating will help others find us as well. If you have feedback or your own stories to share, I'd love to hear from you. Please hit us up at uneventfulpod.com. You can also follow us on Instagram at wildmind.global. That's WYLDMYND.global on Instagram. The details are in the show notes. I'm so grateful for your time and support, and I'll see you next week.